And let's get straight, taking you back to Crown Hill Cemetery, where Officer Seara Burton will soon be laid to rest.
You can see the procession of hundreds of police officers making their way to that final resting place in the Heroes of Public Safety section at Crown Hill. Seara's stepmom, a fellow Richmond police officer, spoke at her funeral this morning. It was very touching, very emotional. Take a listen to what she had to say.
Incredibly proud of Seara. I made sure to tell her that as much as I could. I hope she knew just how proud I was of her and how much I loved her. Seara was the strongest woman I've ever known, and she recently just showed the world just how strong she was. Junior, I was honored to work beside you, and I was honored to be your bonus mom. I promise I will continue to take care of your mother and give Brev the best life ever. We will continue to love and care for baby mama. So please watch over us and rest easy, sweet girl. I love you.
The loss, the love so palpable from her stepmom there. As we mentioned, there were hundreds of officers at today's funeral, and our Rich Nye was there for all of it.
He joins us live from Richmond tonight. What's going on now, Rich?
Jenny and Felicia, those officers came from all over Indiana, Ohio, and we heard from as far away as places like New York, Rhode Island, and the state of Texas. But Officer Seara Burton was homegrown from right here in Wayne County. She graduated from Northeastern High School in 2012. That's in Fountain City. Heather Mayberry grew up playing with Seara. Her grandma and Seara's grandma were neighbors in Fountain City. Heather and her family and friends wore t-shirts today honoring Officer Burton. They were among the hundreds of local residents who joined all the law enforcement officers at the funeral, which lasted for about an hour. Mayberry was heartbroken when Officer Burton was shot and says the 5 weeks until her death were a nightmare.
I watched her grow up. She was always a fighter, always strong and determined.
Why did you want to be here today? And why are you here with so many of your friends and family?
For support. I've known her mom since I was little, and I remember her coming home from the hospital as a baby, so just support.
What do you see in terms of that support today?
It's amazing. It's really, really amazing, and it shows a lot of loyalty for their fellow officer.
Many canine handlers and their dogs attended the funeral and took part in the ceremonies. Officer Burton's canine, Brev, led her casket from the Richmond High School gymnasium to the hearse to begin the long procession to Indianapolis. But the first stop after leaving here was at the Richmond Police Department, and that's where Lauren Kostick joins us live tonight.
Rich, you know, today was filled with a lot of sadness and heartache, but there was also just an incredible show of support and pride here in this community, and that can be seen here on Officer Burton's squad car. You can see dozens of flowers, handwritten notes, candles, stuffed animals, and it goes to show just the dedication and sacrifice she had. And on the windshield is the word hero, a word we heard over and over again today as dozens came to the Richmond Police Department to honor Officer Burton for her sacrifice and dedication, saying it's the least they could do.
We live in a small community and it's all about respect. If you didn't have officers like that, this town would fall completely apart.
She was there when my aunt passed away, and then she was a good one. She was the best one. That's how I feel. And she just has this eyes of compassion.
At the end of the procession was the most emotional part. Officer Burton's hearse stopped in front of the police department for her 10:42 end of watch call. The dispatcher saying Officer Burton proudly wore the badge as a warrior for her community. And after that, the procession headed towards Indianapolis to Crown Hill Cemetery, passing so many communities along the way, including Knightstown, and that's where John Duran has been all day. John, what were you seeing out there?
Yeah, Lauren, even 30 to 35 miles down Highway 40 here in Knightstown, an incredible showing. These sidewalks filled around 4 o'clock when Seara Burton's funeral procession came right down Main Street, right down Highway 40 on its way to Indianapolis. Sidewalks were filled, but also first responders out here, local first responders honoring the fallen officer, an American flag hanging from a fire engine to greet that procession into town. But it was quiet, it was emotional. Many people holding American flags as they watched Officer Burton pass through their community. And everyone I spoke with said it was never really a question if they would head out this afternoon and pay their respects.
Well, actually, I do have a family member that's a police officer and everything. And even if I didn't, I'd still be here to honor them, you know. Just to do my honors.
A lot of emotions throughout the procession from Richmond to Indianapolis. It's just gut-wrenching when an officer loses her life in such a way. Well, just looking at the number of people that have come out already in Knightstown, and I'm sure there's going to be a large number throughout the route, that we can pay our respects in a humble and respectful way.
Yeah, I mentioned people out here holding American flags, holding flags, showing support for police officers. Another touch along Main Street, every light pole with a blue ribbon tied to it to honor Officer Burton. This procession didn't stop here, just passed through, but it meant so much to this community that had a very emotional showing of support as it passed through and on its way to Indianapolis Crown Hill Cemetery, which is where we find Emily Longnecker live for us tonight. Emily?
Hey, John, you know, there's just a silence that's fallen over the cemetery here at the Heroes of Public Safety section. Everyone kind of speaking in hushed tones as the funeral procession for fallen Richmond police officer Seara Burton arrives here at Crown Hill Cemetery, car after car coming through the Heroes of Public Safety section. The coach carrying Officer Burton's casket will be the final vehicle to arrive. There's more than 500 vehicles in this procession with officers from all across the country, as far away as Texas and Oregon. A lot of officers, we're told, from Ohio and Indiana are in this procession. I think it's important to note that we were just here 52 days ago laying to rest fallen police officer from Elwood, Noah Chanavez. So there are going to be, like that day, a lot of emotional moments happening here at Crown Hill, and it's really been a day full of those emotional moments with more to come. We're going to hear, there'll be a short committal ceremony, then a rifle salute with 3 volleys of 7 rifles. We're going to hear taps played by a bugler. Then we're going to see pallbearers that are accompanying Officer Burton's casket. They're going to fold the flag that has accompanied her everywhere and has been draped over her casket the entire time. We're going to hear Amazing Grace played from the bagpipes, and then Richmond Police Chief Michael Britt will present that folded flag to her mom. And finally, officers will put carnations on Officer Burton's casket. First, the pallbearers, followed by all the other officers who will pass by. The final carnation that will be laid on her casket will be from her stepmom, Amy, who is also a Richmond police officer, who will deliver the final salute to her stepdaughter and fellow officer's casket, Officer Seara Burton. So you can see these cars coming in. We're told it could be some time before the coach carrying Officer Burton's casket arrives up here at the Heroes of Public Safety section. But when it does, we will be sure to take it live and show you just the respect paid to this fallen officer. Ladies, we'll send it back to you.
Yeah, Emily, just the scene behind you is so stunning, even just in its silence, and seeing all those vehicles, all that tradition. We certainly appreciate your perspective out there, but truly, it is a moment for all law enforcement and community members to really kind of take in that sacrifice. And again, like Emily said, we want to remind you, we will take you back out live to Crown Hill